Hello, welcome to Legal Action. My name is David Siegel. Thanks for joining us. Today we're going to be talking about the genesis of a lawsuit, pretty much from start to finish. Joining me as always, my co-host, Jesse Barrientos. Jesse, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great, Dave. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. You looking great?
Well, thank you. You as well, my friend.
One of the worst things that can happen in life is to be sued,
That's true.
especially when you're negligent or you've done something wrong or you've done something fraudulent. And it's not so great to be on the offensive side either because really nobody wins. But I want to talk to you today about what happens at the start of a lawsuit. We'll talk about the different types,
Sure.
PI, contract, things like that. And then how it kind of works so people can expect certain expectations and understand that it's not a rosy picture, even if you're in the right.
Either way, and that's the other thing I was going to say. It's not nice to be sued, but if you've been negligent, but especially if you've done nothing wrong. Now,
Right.
it's important for our viewers at home to understand that pretty much anybody with the filing fee can file a lawsuit.
Whether there's a good reason to or not.
That is correct. And so generally, there's some wrong, and they call it tortious conduct. So that could be a car accident, or it could be maybe we have an agreement, Dave. Maybe it's a lease agreement, or maybe it's just another agreement for business, or maybe it's the sale of real estate, or you haven't made certain disclosures. There's a whole bunch of different
Could be
reasons.
something incredibly petty that you would see on the People's Court.
That's correct.
You know,
and
The laundromat ruined my shirt, or they cut my dog's hair too short, or something kind of frivolous where it just gets to be.
Or they cut your
principal
hair
thing.
a little too right. I mean, at least though, that kind of will grow back. But let's
Maybe.
well, yeah, it's these days, right, Dave? So let's, I guess, maybe talk about a simple like a contract case. All right,
Okay.
and so let's just say. Maybe, hey, you've agreed to provide some product or something for a certain price and a certain duration. And of course, we're not going to go through any really specific terms, just to give our viewers kind of an idea how that goes.
Okay.
All right, and so
And somewhere we have an alleged breach.
we have an alleged breach. So let's talk about it. Well, remember, Dave, way back then, okay, in law school, and in some of these examples, the widgets, we'll call them widgets, right? So I'm buying widgets from your company, Dave, right? The Acme Widget Company.
Right.
So okay, so now I have some of these widgets, and okay, we have a couple transactions. They're doing fine, no problem. And then maybe what happens is it could be either I get some of your widgets that are defective, or we can
That's
even
planned obsolescence.
that could be, but
'Cause I want you to buy more.
You want me to buy more, but you sold them to me. But let's talk about something then from your side. So, all right, you sell me widgets, I pay you. You sell me some more widgets, I pay you, and then you send me this really big shipment, Dave, because I got a hot job that's going out.
Mm-hmm.
And then
You don't pay.
I don't pay you for those widgets.
Right. And you make up some excuse as to why you're not going to pay.
Yeah, because those widgets weren't like the last ones you sent me, Dave.
Well,
okay,
now we
planned
have
obsolescence.
Now we have a legitimate
Right?
dispute.
Sure.
I feel that the goods have been shipped
Right.
of the right quality that we contracted for, and you owe a fee. You don't feel they're of that quality. Maybe they're somewhere defective. You're not going to pay
Right.
that fee.
Right,
Now,
now
really, we should just get together and work this out.
We should, and sometimes it happens, but some people take the attitude, okay, Mr. Siegel, if you don't come and take these widgets, because I'm not going to pay for them, they're useless, I'm going to throw them on the street, and then you can do whatever you want with them. What happens is that kind of serves to escalate, because I'm pretty sure you're not going to like that if I told you that.
Right.
Okay, and we might try to come to an agreement and say, okay, well, Dave, hey, look, you know what? I can give you half of the contract price.
Well, I need a lot more than that because I have overhead, I have wages, I have manufacturing costs, I have shipping costs, research and development. So there's an issue where we want more than 50%. We want something fair. Maybe 85 to 90% would be fair.
Well, I don't know, because as I told you, I can't use the widgets because I don't know, they seem to be a little more defective or kind of obsolete then.
Right.
So now we have this issue. But again, also for you on your side of the fence here is that, okay, I agreed to pay a certain price. Okay, but on my side, hey, look, you did agree to provide a working quality product. Okay, so we reach an impasse, and so what's going to happen is that
I'm going to file suit.
You're going to file suit, and generally what happens then is you will draft a complaint. Now, Illinois and we're talking about state court, not federal court. Federal court is a little bit different, and they have what you call notice pleading. So it's just you just have to give enough information to put the other party on notice as to the content, what you're suing for as to the lawsuit. So,
Right.
but state court has to be specific. So you can't plead conclusions. So you have to say specifically what it is. And a lot of things, there's standard kind of paragraphs that you'll have in a complaint that identifies the parties, identifies whether or not if you're a corporation, what the corporation name is, where the address of that corporation, what county it is in, and then you will go through and pretty much with
Right.
particularity.
Well, I'm going to make specific allegations.
Right.
I'm going to attach as an exhibit the contract or the agreement that we entered into. I might even show pictures of the actual items to show that they were in good order when they shipped. I might attach some correspondence that we might have had where you might have admitted at some point that they were okay, and then all of a sudden now they're not okay. So I'm going to plead with specificity. I'm going to attach some exhibits. I'm going to do everything I can from the outset so you know you're in for a battle here.
Right, but on that, and also just so that everybody knows too, okay, in Illinois, and you're going to be filing that electronically,
Yes.
because they changed the law, so now everything has to be filed electronically, and they can help you at your specific clerk's office. However, they do have exemptions, limited exemptions, where people can still, once it's granted, can still file pleadings in that case the old-fashioned way by going up to the window for the clerk.
Oh, you're assuming that we're doing this without attorneys?
Oh no, I'm not. I'm just telling for the folks at home, just so that
Okay.
little kind of side note there, a little interjection of knowledge for them, because we're going to be talking about some things maybe they'll be able to do on their own. So you're going to file that complaint, and then what's going to happen is I'm going to get served. So if I'm a corporation, you're going to serve the registered agent and or an officer. Generally, it's the registered agent, and then I'm going to have 30 days to file my appearance and my answer. My appearance, or for my attorney, right, to be able to say, okay, hey, I'm representing the JVB Corporation, and this is my information and my address and my email, so that all of the notices will go to him, and then the attorney is going to file an answer to...
So this is your entrance into the dispute.
entrance into the dispute.
And if you don't, you
If
could
I-
be held in default, and I could win without you responding at all. I can win just by default,
Yeah, so
if I
let's...
can prove the damage.
Let's back up a little bit. So
Okay.
let's say I don't, I'm duly served, and within 30 days they don't file an answer and appearance. Then because I'm just thinking, okay, hey, he's not going to do anything. I'm going to bury my head in the sand. And then so your attorneys, right, can file a motion for default in which they're going to pretty much allege, look, on this day the complaint was filed. On this day there was service. Here's a copy of the affidavit of service. They were required to file their appearance and answer within 30 days on or before this date. It's been 60 days since that time, and so we're asking for default. Now, sometime you're going to have to send my attorney, or rather me, a copy of that if I haven't responded, and so that might wake me up and it's like, okay, hey, I need to do something now.
Yeah. Oftentimes that will be what gets you off the square, because now,
Exactly.
if you don't respond, there's going to be a monetary judgment.
That's correct. And then so, all right, so then mostly the courts, the judges will give the defendant time to respond, 28 days or so.
Let's talk about your answer. I think that's important.
Yeah.
You have to do what with your answer, very specifically?
You have to either admit or deny, or you have to plead lack of knowledge. So basically,
For each of the items, every paragraph that I put in a complaint, you have to answer. You can't ignore
every
it.
paragraph, and I basically have to say, hey, listen, I admit this, I deny this, or I lack sufficient...
Neither admit nor deny, but demand
lack,
strict
right,
proof thereof.
I lack
It's
sufficient...
coming back to me.
Yeah, it is. I lack sufficient information or belief to form, a basis to either admit or deny. Yeah, so
More
same
likely,
kind of
though,
thing.
you'll flat out deny the allegations that are...
That's true, but let's back up even a little bit further, because I don't have to file an answer, so I could file a motion to dismiss. Now, there are a couple of different things I could do. It's what they call in the Code of Civil Procedure, it's a 2615, 735 Illinois compiled statutes, 2615 motion to dismiss, which
Yeah, they're a pile, all right.
well, they are, and I would be saying that, hey, listen, you haven't alleged a legal claim upon which relief can be granted. And then there is what they call a 2619, it's the same thing, 735 Illinois compiled statutes, 2619, and basically that is saying that, hey, the complaint should be dismissed, and there are a lot of reasons. For example, maybe it's already been litigated. Maybe the contract was void, or that one of the parties was incompetent. I mean, and then there's a catch-all, 216(9), that's, for anything else.
But in our example here, we have a legitimate dispute. So what are the odds of you bringing that and being successful?
Well, if you didn't plead your complaint with particularity, I could say, hey, look, he said he's just alleging conclusions. Or I could also file a motion for what they call a bill of particulars, which basically asks you to spell things out. There's a whole bunch of different things. And so people...
That's funny. You're not paying your bill, but you're going to file something called the bill of particulars.
That's exactly correct.
Okay. But in reality, though, if you were to be successful and the case would be, your motion would be granted, I wouldn't be thrown out of court, right? I'd be given a chance to amend my plea.
Well, right, it depends. If it's a 2615 motion, basically saying, hey, look, you haven't alleged anything, maybe you just, didn't allege a specific paragraph that would, that would bring you into the elements of the claim. Okay, fine. But if it's a 2619, let's just say I allege, listen, I paid him. Here's a check. Okay, that's a little different. In this case, I haven't, but there you go. Or I could say for anything else, depending upon
You haven't even paid a partial, so, you can't make that allegation.
In this particular case.
Yeah.
But I tell you what I can do based upon what you mentioned earlier, what you're going to attach to your complaint. I'm probably going to file a motion to strike those exhibits, because those exhibits are hearsay, not the contract, although technically the contract is hearsay. However, the local rules require you to attach the instrument, which is the subject matter of the litigation. However, if you're going to attach correspondence, I'm going to object to that. If you're going to attach emails, I'm going to object to that. If you're going to attach anything other than
they were
the
proffered
instrument,
by you or your client.
well, it doesn't matter, because that's a matter of proof, and that's a matter for the judge to determine, not to poison the well. And again, we can go back and forth.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who attach those things. Some people will let it go. I find sometimes I have a lot of pro se folks on the other side, and no, I'm not going to just let you try to get in all kinds of evidence that you're not going to be able to get in anyway,
Right,
okay?
right.
So, all right, so we do that. So now let's just say we get past that point, right, Dave, where, okay, I
And we're
filed
still
my...
butting heads. We
Yeah.
haven't worked it out,
No,
even though
no.
we've filed, you've
Right.
answered, there's been some communication back and forth through the council. There's still no one saying, let's resolve this.
Right, so then what's going to happen, depending upon the amount...
Propound.
Well, before we get there, depending upon the amount of the damages, we might have to exchange 222 disclosure statements.
You also may want a jury.
Well, if I filed an appearance, right, I may...
Would you do that in this case?
It depends. It depends on a couple things. Depends on who the judge is, and it's going to depend on the nature
And the county.
of the dispute and
Let's
the county.
Let's not forget about that.
That's
Counties
true.
matter.
Right.
Judges matter and the county
Right.
matters.
So if you have a judge, basically for our folks at home, if the judge is going to make a decision, the judge is going to decide both issues of law and issues of fact. And if there's a jury involved, then the judge is going to decide issues of law, but the jury is the fact finder. They're going to make a decision. And so unless you know what you're doing, there's a lot of, hey, you have 12 people or 6 people, depending on the size of your jury, that could, from different backgrounds, they could either help you or not. And that's why people generally do juries.
Okay. You said it depends upon the judge as to whether you would substitute or go for a jury. Aren't the judges honorable? Aren't they going to interpret the law based on the facts and be fair?
Well, that's always the hope, and we have a lot of mighty fine judges in our wonderful state of Illinois. However, you have 12 or 15 or 20 judges, you have 12 or 15 or 20 individuals that have different colored perspectives. And if your attorney is familiar with the judge and has done similar cases and has an idea on how the judge might rule, and if that's not favorable to me, that's something I might not want to, because I already have an idea.
Okay.
So I might want to try to shift a little focus here.
All right, let's say we all like the judge.
We're
He
all
or
good.
she is fair. Where do we go from here now in the litigation
Okay,
process?
so we talked about the 222 disclosure. So basically, depending upon the amount that you're suing for, we're both going to be required to exchange disclosure statements, which is initially just kind of like mini discovery, essentially. And discovery means letting you know what the evidence I have, and you letting me know what evidence you have. But realistically, we're still going to conduct, and that has to be done actually before the discovery. You have to do that in so much time to exchange those disclosures. But then we're going to do discovery. So we're going to do propound to serve to you, and you're going to propound to serve to me interrogatories. which are questions specifically aimed at the claim. And sometimes, depending upon the type of case, they have standard interrogatories that you get right out of the statute for that. And sometimes they're tailored to a specific claim. And we're also going to do notice to produce. Dave, tell us what notice to produce is.
Well, notice to produce would be you'd be asking for specific documentation related to the dispute. So maybe a bill of lading, a contract, a ledger based on payments, maybe something regarding the quality of the item, whether or not there's been any other complaints about this item. So anything that could be probative to help prove or disprove a case would be helpful to receive documentation. And that could also be eventually entered into evidence, so to speak,
True.
if it comes to a full hearing.
And that's true with the interrogators. You're asking those questions, and the parties can object to the interrogators and notice to produce and say, hey, listen, this isn't a legitimate question for you to ask, or this is not a legitimate production request. I'm not going to provide this because it's got nothing to do with our claim. And if we can't resolve it, then the judge is going to resolve it, and the judges don't like to resolve discovery disputes.
Right.
They want people to play nicely and to be able to do that.
There's
to
one
work it
other
out.
major part of discovery that we haven't talked about yet, and this would be more of an involved litigation, maybe a higher dollar amount, but we're going to want to get some people under oath and on the record before it's gone before the court. So
Right.
why don't we talk to that?
To do their deposition, but even before that, we want to do perhaps, I'm going to serve you with
Request to admit?
213, well, that's a possibility, but 213F, basically interrogatories asking about your experts. Are you going to have any expert witnesses? And if you have any expert witnesses, do they have any reports? And what is the basis of their findings and everything else? Because it depends. If it's going to be a technical case and it's going to be up to an expert and we're going to have to employ those people to do that, I'm going to ask for that. We're going to ask for, you mentioned a request to admit. That's basically you serve them on the other side and you ask whether or not they've done certain things or whether or not these things are true or not. And if they don't answer within a specific amount of time, it's the kiss of death, because then those things are deemed admitted without having to proffer the proof for that.
Right.
And then we get into, even before our depositions that we're going to talk about in a minute, we get into subpoenaing information. So I can subpoena, Dave, your manufacturing records. I can that you get from somebody else, or your bank records. You can subpoena my stuff, and we can also argue about quashing the subpoena, saying that, oh, it's not legitimate, or all different
Right.
kinds of things. And then once we have all of the documents and we reviewed them and done little summaries on those things, then we can do the deposition. And you can take my deposition, I can take yours, or anybody else that's involved. And again, these are discovery depositions, and they're for the purpose of gaining information in
Right.
order to put on the trial.
Right. Now, this all depends upon the complexity of the case,
That's
the
correct.
dollar amount involved, because what you're talking about here, if you went and did all that,
I might as well pay you.
exactly, you could be talking about tens, 20, even
Well, but
hundreds of thousands
but
of
even
dollars.
before we get to that, so now what we also have is a wonderful thing. So now let's say we have all of our discovery and everything else done. Okay. So now what we're going to do before we even go to trial, and there's something that is called a motion for summary judgment. Okay, it's the rules of procedure. So basically now we've done all the discovery, and so basically I'm going to say, hey, Judge, look, and I'm going to do this in writing, there's no contested issues of material fact in the case. We agree on this. And if you just look on everything that we've agreed on and there's no contested issues, I'm entitled to judgment as a matter of law.
Right.
And so we're going to try that. And then,
Even though we have a legitimate dispute, you're still going to try it because why?
well,
You might win on it.
Well, you might win on it, but also, I mean, there has to be, and I've seen all kinds of different cases that I've been involved in, and I've been on both sides, where the other side will do it. It's a lot of time, a lot of these big firms, because let's say they're doing
Fee generation.
They're doing well, for whatever the reason, fee generation or other. But it's a matter of course. From these big firms, you're going to get that no matter what. That's before any settlement talks can be had. That's what's going to happen.
So you answer that and it goes to a hearing.
Well,
So
then
it
you
generates
file a
more work.
response to it, right? You file a response to it. The judge rules on it, and if the judge rules and grants motion for summary judgment, the whole case is over.
Right.
And I'm ordered to do something to pay you, or it's like, nope, you don't owe him. That's it. We're done. I mean, you could certainly do a motion to reconsider, and then eventually an appeal. But let's
Appeal.
get back to this. So let's just say, all right, we've done this. They've been denied, so we're still trial bound here, right, Dave? And so now the next step is to do what they call a pretrial conference.
Okay. That sounds like a mini trial, but really it's not.
It's not, and actually, to take a step back, We'll get to that. Remind me about mediation after we talk about that.
We also might have a settlement conference. We might
Well,
try to
right.
resolve it at that
We
point.
might get together, just the four of us.
Because
or
now
the-
everything's on the table.
Right.
Everybody sees
Right.
what they have, they see the experts, the opinions, you've got the
the
depositions.
cost of a trial.
Yes.
And so when
Uncertainty,
right, and when I say the four of us, I mean you and your attorney and me and my attorney. We might have other people.
a foursome.
Right, to get together and to talk about it. But even if we don't, then, and we can't agree on it, or let's say that maybe we can agree on a couple things, but not all of it, or maybe we can't agree on anything in terms of the amount or anything like that, then we will prepare, and we'll ask the judge, and we both have to agree for a pretrial conference. And that's where the judge looks at the pretrial memo that you present, and you're able to talk to the judge and kind of tell him things that might not even be able to come in at the trial. But then the judge makes a recommendation as to, what he believes, should happen. And so unless something is extraordinarily and substantially different at trial than what you've presented to the judge, you have a good idea on what he or she is, how they're going to rule. Now, sometimes there'll be a little trial tax. And what that will mean is, listen, this is a recommendation. It's a good recommendation. And if you're not going to follow it, the person who's not going to follow it, so you might get slapped or hit a little bit harder because now you're and you have a right, and that's why I've never understood. They call it trial tax, but hey, because now, I've invoked my right to go to trial. Okay, there you're going for that. So what are you going to do? But anyway, so here we go. So we go back and we look at or listen to the recommendations of the judge. We don't have to agree on it, but if we do, we can settle the case. And if we don't, then
And then it's an all or nothing proposition sometimes.
we're headed to trial. That's exactly right.
And that could be days or weeks
Depending,
or longer.
Right, depending, like you said, upon the complexity, upon everything else. Now, in other in actions under $50,000, okay, it's arbitration. And what happens is that you're sent to arbitrators. And so it's like a mini trial before a panel that's required. And they will rule. And either you'll win or you'll lose. But, if the losing party is always going to file a rejection, and that costs like I don't know, my last recollection was somewhere around $300.
This is very common with the injury cases.
Right.
Under
and,
a certain dollar
right,
amount.
right. And, if it's within,
Mandatory arbitration.
50,000, right. And so then that'll happen. And then and if you don't file a rejection within the time, which I believe is 30 days, then that's the judgment and that's it. It
Yeah.
sticks. But if you do, then again, you're trial bound again. And so now you get a second bite at the apple. All right. And so basically it's really like having kind of two trials. But again, everything we talk about is a lot of work. Now, sometimes the parties will agree to go to mediation or binding arbitration, rather, right? Where so basically it's an independent firm, and both parties pay their share and their portion, and they have an independent arbitrator that is going to hear the trial essentially, but it's not in a judicial setting, okay? And then they're going to make a decision, and
It's a relaxed atmosphere.
it's a relax, and
And the rules are relaxed.
and then the rules are like, but that's it, and then that's it. Whatever that is what that is,
Right.
and you're done.
Well, this is why it's a good idea, first of all, to try and resolve disputes if you can. There's an expression, your first loss is your best loss, meaning it's better to take that first little blow than to totally turn it into a federal case and possibly wind up having a huge loss when you factor in the expenses, the cost of litigation, the time, the distress. That's what I was saying. Very rarely does anybody win.
Yeah, mitigate. Well, right.
Win
They lose
outright.
Sure. So, there's another expression, Dave, that a bird in the hand, right, is worth more than two in the bush, because you have that in your hand. And if you're talking about generally a good decision is when both sides are not happy.
Right. Perfect example of a divorce case.
It really, really is. So when you're doing that, now it's not all going to be over. So let's just say we don't come to an agreement, and let's just say we do a trial, whether or not it's a jury trial or a bench trial, and then the judge is going to make a decision. And that
Okay.
could take, like you said, who knows how long, and you have to follow rules of evidence and everything else.
And often not on the spot. The judge will take it under advisement, and you might have to wait weeks and weeks and weeks for a decision.
Yeah, boy, that's the truth. And it just depends on what it is and where it is and everything else.
Once
and,
again,
and
the
docket.
uncertainty.
The uncertainty.
The uncertainty throughout the whole
Right.
process, even at the end.
Right. And it's not going
Uncertainty.
to go as smoothly as we've talked about here. There's going to be continuances for status because people weren't able to get documents. And this is going to go on for a good couple years or so.
It's not going to be exciting
I would
like all
think.
the courtroom dramas that you
Oh,
see
no,
on TV?
no. We're not going to have our dispute.
What?
And then we're not going to have our trial and have it resolved in 2 days. No, Dave, it's not going to happen.
It's not going to be a gotcha moment where you freak out on the stand?
No, it's not. Well, you might freak out on the stand, but it's not going to be kind of like that. So, so we go to trial, and let's just say, hey, you know what? Somebody's going to be a winner, somebody's going to be a loser. They're going to either award me, judgment, so I don't have to pay you, or they're going to award you judgment, all of what you want, or some of what you're asking for. Okay.
Let's say we get a partial award. Let's say I was suing for $250,000, which is what the cost of the contract would have been. But the judge kind of does some dissecting and says some of the items weren't good, and you're entitled to a credit for some. And I wind up getting a judgment for $190,000. If you're okay with that, what can you do to actually satisfy the judgment to make this go away so that it's not even of record?
I can
no
pay you.
interest? Okay.
I can pay you, or
But is there going to be a judgment?
no, if I pay you, there is what they call a release and satisfaction.
Okay,
and
let's
it gets,
talk about
it's
that.
vacated.
This is the end of the case.
Right,
That's
but
what I want to
that's
get to.
one possible scenario. So
Well, that's the best scenario, isn't it?
well, for you it is.
Well, you don't want to appeal.
It isn't for me. I might want to. But before I'm going to do that, I might file a motion to reconsider, basically telling the judge, and you can file a motion to reconsider to say that, hey, listen, there was evidence that wasn't available at the trial, despite the due diligence that was happening. We just discovered this, or hey, the judge applied the law incorrectly.
So the same judge that just ruled against you,
Right.
you're going to bring a motion that says, hey, judge, take another look at this.
Well, that's
you
kind of a.
missed this.
That's true. That's a precursor kind of to an appeal.
What's
And-
the odds of the reconsideration being granted?
Well, here's an interesting
Honestly.
thought. Well, I'll tell you.
Percentage-wise.
Seriously. Well, I don't know about percentage-wise, but I'll tell you this, and this is true with anything and any place you go, all right? If you don't ask, the answer's definitely going to be no.
Okay.
If you do ask, it might not be no.
Okay.
So, but again, there has to be some legitimacy to it. And then all right, so chances are he's not going to grant it. And then what's going to happen is I, have 30 days to file my notice of appeal.
Okay.
And now we're in.
In the minute left, talk about the appeal briefly.
Okay. Well, in appeal then, basically it goes up to a reviewing court, and you have to get all the transcripts, and you have to file your brief to show where you think the judge erred, and there are different standards that the judge erred, didn't follow the law and everything else. And,
And the types of decisions that the appellate court can make are what?
they can affirm the lower court's decision,
Okay.
which means the judge did okay. They can reverse it and say, no, it should have been judgment for JVB Corporation. Or they can partially reverse and remand it for
Remand it back with some further instructions.
further instructions for the court to look at. Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we have litigation.
Nobody wins, essentially, Dave. This
Right.
is what I'm trying to tell you.
You started with a relatively minor dispute,
Right?
but there was a big dollar amount attached to it.
That's correct.
And then it escalated to the point where you couldn't settle. Someone filed a suit. You went through all this litigation, discovery, pretrial, trial, appeal. It sounds like just a terrible way to go.
It is, and not to mention the emotional impact that it has on all litigants.
And the time that it kills.
The time and the money and the effort and the just resources and everything else.
Okay, sounds good, Jesse.
All right, Dave.
Good talking to you about litigation.
You as
We'll
well.
see you next time on Legal Action. Take care.